How do I do that again? You're doing it? Okay, so great. Hello, everyone. I am Davina Smith. I am the founder and CEO of Coveted Maine, and due to very popular demand, this is our second series with these two amazing guests. Dr. Miriam Safahi is joining us again today. She's a board-certified dermatologist and hair loss specialist based in California. I'll have you, where exactly in California are California is too big of a city.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm based in Los Angeles, and
Okay.
there's currently a practice in Santa Monica that
Okay.
yeah.
Thing. And then we have Jen Schroeder. She was supposed to join us for our first session. We are so lucky to have her for this session. She is a part of the Coveted Maine team. She is our territory manager for the Carolinas. And is it Carolinas? And I feel like there's another couple of states.
A bit of Georgia and some of Buffalo now.
Oh, yes.
In
Okay,
like
great.
the Western New York area as well. A little bit of everything.
Yes, and you know, when Jen came onto the team, it was very much, we had a lot of a very personal conversation about experience with hair loss personally, and also just being in the salon industry for so long, really being an advocate for salon owners who are experiencing this with their clients and not knowing what solutions are available. And then also just being a client who wants to be able to talk to a professional as well as your stylist to offer a really good solution. So we're going to be having, once again, another great conversation. We have a couple of pre-prepared questions, but last time we also, there were so many questions that you guys were asking, and we want to make sure that we leave space for that as well. So please, as before, feel free to leave your questions in the chat, and we have our team here who can kind of help. Feel free to interrupt if we're already kind of in the flow of that, and it's a natural outrise of what we're already discussing. But then of course at the end we'll cover those questions. So let's begin. Are you guys ready? And Jen, I wanted to just give you a little bit of a chance just to kind of tell a little bit more of your story first, because I know that you have a personal connection. I want to give a little bit of space for that for you.
So really my journey with hair extensions is kind of a two-part journey because it started in my beginning of my career, before all the hormones, before all of that, when I was going for a very different content for my hair. And then since I have now gotten into the, hormonal, perimenopausal, all of that, it is a completely different journey. So I've had both ends of it. It's very, very emotional for me on both ends, and a really, truly deep connection that I have with extensions and hair loss. So that's kind of what brought me here.
And then also, Dr. Miriam, I know a lot of doctors, would you prefer Dr. Miriam or Dr.
Dr. Miriam's actually perfect. I think it's so
Okay.
cute.
Let me know what you prefer. I really
Perfect.
want to. I mean, I'm so impressed with not only being a board certified dermatologist, but really the depth of your experience around hair loss, and how it affects different communities. I think that was like our biggest takeaway from our last conversation. So I just wanted to give a little space into like your background and how you kind of stepped into this specialty within your specialty.
Yes. So I have been practicing the dermatology for almost a decade now. And within dermatology, I think we kind of touched on this before, is that most folks don't even realize that the hair space is in dermatology. And I've had several patients even come up and say, gosh, I wish I had known earlier, I would have come to see a dermatologist sooner, because they go to their primary care doctor and then primary care often is not sure. And then they just kind of get this runaround. And often actually stylists are the first to really kind of intervene. So, and they'll say, you actually need to go see a dermatologist. And so within that space, because I saw such a disparity in just like knowledge within the community in some aspects, it was empowering just to kind of like learn myself. And then within the hair space, you also see different cultural backgrounds that have such unique trends towards their hair. And so it's really important to familiarize yourself with that as a dermatologist. most dermatologists don't love doing hair. And so this is something that I personally have have a passion about, and I enjoy advocating for good knowledge so that that can be passed on to both the consumer and to the patients as well.
Okay, and to bring, as you said, most clients are really the first person advocating is their stylist. Jen, was that your experience for you? Like, what were the first signs that you noticed, and how did you know it was time to seek support for hair, your
So,
initial experience with hair thinning?
so I've always had the fine thin hair that was genetic thinning. I was always kind of prepared for that part of it. So in my earlier career, because I was working at the time for a luxury hair care company, and that was very difficult for me because I was giving education on products. I was involved in these glamorous hair shows with people that just had this amazing, amazing hair and just was highlighted through products and through, styles and designs. And I think that was the moment for me that I started to feel really insecure and kind of like, oh gosh, like, should I even be here? Should I be doing this? Like, I kind of felt like I was maybe in the wrong industry, even though the products and all of that was a love for me. um and there was just one day where I kind of broke down in my stylist chair, and she said, "What are we doing today?" And I said, "I don't know, maybe shave my head because I'm over it. I don't know
Yeah.
what to do." And I just started crying, and that was like my moment. And I'm sorry, it's so emotional for me, but
Mhm.
yeah, so she said, "You want big glamorous hair? Let's give you big glamorous hair." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And she introduced me to extensions. And that day forward, I mean, I was aware of them ever since that day. But my confidence level exceeded and went through the roof. And I never knew that I was able to feel that level before.
Yeah.
So that was very special to me.
That's, I mean, it's for what I say, what we do. It's like, it's such an emotional part because it is something that reflects vitality and health. And when you feel like you don't get to show that, and for a lot of women, we're in careers that are very like sales focused, presentation focused, or beauty or fashion, and it does make you feel, um, it makes you feel like you almost have to like be on the sidelines. And that's why with Covet and Main, we want to make sure that the solutions that we're offering to people are respectful of like, yes, you can have the hair that you want, but you also need to protect and play defense against hair loss. And so there is that point of like the stylist giving extensions, but then also knowing when to have or like a dermatologist step in and give you solutions that don't make it. So I always call, you don't want to like have to have extensions either. So if you, as much as you can, preserving your hair is super important. From a medical perspective, what would you say, like what role is early detection? Like how important is it in preventing hair loss? And like, and then this is a two-part question because I really want to go into the journey. When do you usually find that first stage in a woman's journey is when they're coming into is it, I have a guess, I feel like I have a guess of when it is, but I'm curious from your anecdotal experience, when usually is that?
Yes, to answer the first part, it's absolutely paramount that a stylist is in tune as you had experienced with Jen, that your stylist really empowered you, but also you need to have hair to be able to put the extensions on. And so if someone is actively losing hair, that's, and you're actually doing harm by your client. And so it's really, if you start seeing this happening where you're like, oh my gosh, every time you come in, there's like less and less hair, it's like, instead of just keep going through, I mean, it seems like common sense, but it's really paramount that you say something, because there are certain types of hair loss, like we discussed last time, that are scarring types of hair loss, as in the follicles become scarred down, and then that's irreversible if it's not caught early. And so it's real. And then those are individuals who end up having to rely on wigs later on in their life. And that's really tragic because it can definitely be avoided. So the stylist is really integral in this entire journey. When I often start seeing patients, it's around the ages of early 30s. I've started to notice that women start coming in with experiencing hair loss, and they're just like, I don't know what happened. It's like I just woke up one day and like all my hair is gone. And it's just it's a very personal journey for them, because not everyone's, you may look at someone and be like, oh my gosh, she has more hair than I do. What is she talking about? But for them, that is not their baseline. And it's really important not to discount that. And that's what I really try to do with most of the patients, is give them the time to be able to describe what their entire hair journey has been and where they are now, because then that will help make the plan forward.
Okay, now in terms of what the hormonal effects of hair loss, can you kind of, because that was something that came up a lot as well too, and I think we have a personal concern over that. So, I think a lot of people are usually aware postpartum hair loss, but then because I in a city like New York or LA, there are also a lot of people who tend to have children later. So you're getting the postpartum hair loss, and it's kind of like being introduced during this time where you, unbeknownst to you, are also maybe going through perimenopause at the same time. So you're having in your late 30s a lot of acceleration of hormonal hair changes. What are those solutions different? And do you have to work with different partners than you do for typical hair loss? Like what does that process look like, and how do you involve the stylist in that as well?
Yeah, so you absolutely nailed it again. So I was actually telling Dafina and Jen, I'm actually personally 7 months pregnant right now, and I'm also 40 years old. So that's why I was saying I look a little different than my little Instagram picture. But so I'm bracing myself for impact after the child is born, and for the experience of the postpartum hair loss. That is unfortunately inevitable. And you can genetically be the most blessed individual and have the most incredible hair, but it's just going to happen. And then you compound that with the hormonal aspects that were already going to happen. And now you have this two worlds where patients are like, oh, wait a minute, I should be out of this postpartum period, but I'm now experiencing this massive decline in hormones because I'm like 41, 42 years old, and it's starting to go down. And again,
no, yeah, no. Thank you though. I know it saved money. Again, I'm so sorry for last week.
And so it's really important that we educate ourselves with, again, that particular individual, their journey, and what has brought them here.
So and I have a couple questions, and Jen, I want to like bring in your experience into this as well too. What were your big concerns going from, or did it show up differently? I guess is kind of what I'm wanting to get a sense of, like having fine and thin hair already, as you were saying, like you knew from a young age, like this was going to be something. But then did you find that as you started to approach, like did hormonal hair loss, not loss, but changes, I think is the right word. Did it show up differently? I felt like I've been observing that for me, I've always had fine hair, but it's coarse. So it was not coarse. I've had fine hair, but it's textured. So it kind of manifests differently. But I have found the hormonal changes to be very different experience in having fine hair. Did you find that as well? And like, have you found like, how did you navigate that?
So absolutely. And to Dr. Miriam's point, having children later in life. So I was 38 and 39 when I had my kids. So I experienced the postpartum and then boom, right into the perimenopausal. So I think I got double whammied and have never, been able to recover from that. So the signs for me were completely different. I experienced all the hair loss around the frame of my face. And then the widened part started happening just a little bit more every year. So I was very hesitant to go the extension route because it was no longer about me having this like editorial hair. It was about me being able to walk out of the house with confidence without feeling like I looked bald. At that point, another conversation with my stylist, we got into keratin hair fibers. To try to just do a little concealing. And then after that, it was amazing because I started using extensions in a very different manner. So we went the direction of using my natural kind of hair that I had and then kind of just enhancing it
Mhm.
through some extensions here and there. And that was enough to give me the confidence going forward. And that's where I've been for years now.
Okay. And Dr. Mirazabai, what would you say, like, because I have like concerns with it. I know a lot of people are having conversations about like hormone replacement therapy or whether it's supplements around hormonal changes if they don't do the whole HRT. Are you like how do you adjust your treatment when you have a client who's experiencing or going on hormone replacement therapy? Do you have to make changes in your treatment plan? Have you noticed different side effects, or is it really just on an individual level?
Yes, so I am a huge, actually, let me put it this way. I've become a huge proponent of HRT, hormone replacement therapy. And by no means am I reproductive,
Yeah.
like like a hormonal specialist, let's put it this way.
Yeah.
So I definitely would defer to seeing a gynecologist who does specialize in this. Now, that being said, I have anecdotally seen so many of my patients who come in, and these are women and they're 40, like 45 and later, let's say, who've struggled with just all the aspects of the decreased hormones, and like hair being one of them, which is one that is very visible. But then you have a lot of the emotional impact as well that Jen had touched on earlier. And they struggle with it because they're like, okay, maybe I can just like do this journey on my own and I can do supplements and do over the counter things and try to figure this out. Once you kind of realize that sometimes it just won't go back. And it will never obviously go back to the way it was before, but it just continues to get worse. And then that's where having the HRT comes in handy, not only for the hair, but for the entire like quality of life that you'll experience. Most of my patients have said, I wish I had done it earlier. That has been the comment that I have just anecdotally have noticed over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what Jen's experience has been with that.
Yeah, I'm curious to put you on the spot, Jen, but
So, interestingly enough, this is my next stage of my journey is hormone replacement therapy, which I'm just getting into right now. I had gone to my dermatologist, which I know, Dr. Miriam, you had stated in the last session, sometimes they don't want to deal with hair. I'd gone to my dermatologist, kind of given concerns, and they said, ooh, you need to talk to your primary care physician. And I was like, okay. So went to my primary care physician, and he was kind of, I don't really specialize a whole lot in that. We can do some prescription minoxidil. That's pretty much the only thing I can do for you. So that led me to seeking out the hormone replacement therapy, which is where I'm at now, beginning that journey.
And are you, and this is, I think, one of the frustrations and why I think stylists can be so helpful in this is that medicine for women has, it's very bifurcated, but like it's all on one body. They're all working together. And I found the same thing where you go to your gynecologist and they're like, well, we're more focused on, are you reproducing or not? It's like very binary. And so I was, like, here's some supplements, maybe, but everything seems fine. And then it was the dermatologist, but that's not really their purview, but they can see that there's an issue. And then you really have to kind of find the sweet spot of like a hormonal special, and for women who are busy, it's like, okay, this is now the 8th phone call and the 7th appointment on top of the kids and on top of the braces and all the things. So I wonder in this for Dr. Safahi, if you have any guidance for stylists to just help them be able to, if they have clients of this cohort, of just being able to help them maybe navigate who should they go to, and because especially if like the sooner the better, if we're all working in tandem with one another. Do you have any guidance on that world?
Yes. And I'm so sad to hear about Jen's experience because that's so disheartening to hear the dermatologist said actually go to your primary care. It should be the other way around. But it's probably happening more often than not. And I would say, and I feel so terrible when people get the runaround because it's costly, it's time intensive, as you've said. So the best way to do it, as I had kind of mentioned last time is when you look up the dermatologist in your community, call when you make the appointment, or before making the appointment, and see if they specialize in hair loss. Because if they don't, then they're just going to you're going to have the same experience that Jen had, and you're going to go through 5 different folks, and and in the end, you're going to be frustrated. So that's the first thing I would do. Because there's a lot of things that we can start in the clinic that are not hormonal that would actually help contribute to the hormonal aspects with this. And that's something that most dermatologists this day and age should be able to do. But you definitely want to see someone who feels comfortable doing so.
Okay. So guiding them to, and that's a great tip for stylists, is to, making sure they're calling before booking and understanding like who to call first. And then also I think that there's so much power in, and I know, Jen, we're trying to do this in your region as well. Just build together a network of dermatologists and salons that can help start having these conversations together, maybe at the salon, just to kind of bridge the gap, I think just starting the conversation. I see Maria is saying that HRT is life changing. And I do think that I know that there was there's a good 20 years of like a study that might have been misinterpreted, or just like causation that kind of had stopped a lot of doctors for 20 years, give or take, prescribing HRT. But it does seem like there is a sea change again of new research, that there are so many benefits for it. And I know personally, one question I had is are there any parts of HRT though that do cause hair loss? Because I've heard, like I know for some women who have been like just on testosterone or just and I know this kind of goes outside of your purview, but I'm curious if you've seen like a resistance to trying HRT because of hair loss. Anticipation.
Yes. Again, that's a great point to bring up. So there are, again, I'm not an expert on the hormonal cocktail that they will give you, because it's definitely, they tailor it to your specific needs, but oftentimes it includes like an estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And depending again, how much you would have of each. Now, just the other day, I had a patient who had come in, and over the course of like 3 months prior to I'd seen her, I was like, oh my goodness, her hair is like, where did it go? And she's a woman in her 50s. And she didn't volunteer the information that she had started HRT. So I was just like trying to like pry as to like what is going on here. And so I was like, is there any chance that you're on testosterone, which is not a common thing that you would ask a woman? And she's like, yeah, it's funny that you say I just started HRT, and it's like primarily driven by the testosterone. I'm like, that's what's leading to a lot of the hair loss. And you could just see like her scalp, again, the widening of the part. I mean, I could really see everything at this point. And she had no idea, because the individual she had been going to kind of maybe had not really focused on those aspects.
Yeah.
And so one component of that too, that I just want to add on, is that when you go see a hormone replacement specialist, there's a lot. And if you live in these bigger cities, there's a lot of folks that will kind of do this because it's a very lucrative field. And they may not be doing things particularly evidence-based, shall we say, and just will kind of do whatever you want them to do, which is really sad. But what I'm trying to get at is that they may not be entirely like understanding of the pathophysiology of like what's causing this hair loss. And so they're just saying like, okay, this is the hormone that you need, but they're not looking at like, oh my gosh, your hair is getting worse. They might not also even notice it. So if you start noticing that your hair loss is getting worse being on this, definitely bring it up, because if you're waiting for the other person to bring it up, they may never bring it up.
Okay. And so it's important, because is there anything tactically that you can do from a dermatology standpoint to help counterbalance that?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Okay. Yeah. So there are certain medications that we can give. And most of these, I would say, when we start reaching at this point in time, it's going to be mostly oral medications.
Okay.
A lot of the topicals are not really going to be able to penetrate deep enough into the scalp. Now, that we do have like topical compounded formulations for those that are very resistant to taking medications, and that's when I offer them topicals. It's better than nothing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But if you really want to go at it, I would say there's certain oral formulations that we would use depending on what we're trying to target. And that's definitely something that we'd have to then look at the risk factors in yourself. Because, for example, there's certain medications that we give that can definitely put you at increased risk for breast cancer. And so if you are someone who already has something, a family history of that or high risk for that, we would want to avoid. So
Okay.
it's not a one size fits all.
Okay, this is super helpful to know because it's like it's all happening
Yeah.
on the one body, and yet it's like there's different people who are not necessarily talking to one another.
Yeah.
So okay, so and the one other question around this as well is like once just like I'm assuming like just like minoxidil or Rogaine, any hair loss, like I know that menopause kind of has an end, but is this something once you start, is it something to get you through the perimenopause, like to postmenopause, and then you can drop off of it? Or is this something that you'd be looking to take the rest of your life? If you're doing
Yeah.
something like oral medication wise.
Right. That's a really good question. And, we use oral minoxidil a lot now, and that's something that we can definitely use in the pre, peri, and postmenopausal state because it's just been proven over and over again to be quite safe. The question does often come up, like, how long do I have to take this? I would say that it definitely helps support the hair that is there and to prevent it from like getting worse as far as falling out. And the concern is that when you stop, there will definitely be a shedding phase, and who's to say like it won't kind of stay at that point. I feel like most of my patients, because they're so like unfortunately just terrified of going back to the way they were before, that they're just willing to stay on it because it's just the risks are so there's like zero side effects for them.
Okay.
And so anecdotally, I'll say that most of mine haven't wanted to come off, even though
And
I've
it's,
said like, yeah.
and it's a fairly affordable
Oh,
prescription.
yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. So it's not currently FDA approved, which so we're all waiting for the FDA because they are working on a formulation right now that is trying to get FDA approval, and that's probably slated to come out in the next 2 years.
Okay.
And then once that happens, I do wonder if they'll start raising the price on it.
Mm,
Most of my patients are paying $10 to $30 a month,
okay. Which is great. I mean,
which is
or
remarkable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question for you, Jen, in terms of practical solutions now as well. And also, if you guys have questions as well, feel free to step in. But did you find like along the way that there were particular like salon services or products or prescriptions or that you felt were like the most impactful for you outside of extensions in your journey?
So yeah, I actually have just started also incorporating the head spa treatments for the circulation and stimulation and using the deep oils to help with the root. So I would say that's something that I have seen a big change in my hair and the strength and support of my hair since starting to incorporate that. So I would say that's the biggest one so far. And then just really carefully choosing my hair products that I'm using.
Okay. And what do you look for? And like, is there a particular thing that you look for in terms of like a vetting process for your hair products?
More so what they don't contain. So
Okay.
just the list of things that I know could be damaging. So that's probably my biggest thing. And then also have incorporated starting to take collagen peptides, the powder form, just kind of putting that into my water or coffee. I feel like the peptides have definitely helped because it's for skin and hair support. So I've noticed a difference. It's been probably about a year since consistently doing that, and that has also been a good change.
Okay. And for you, Dr. Miriam, what in terms of salon solutions for our stylists within the Coven and Main community, where it's not quite go get on Rogaine, but like it's the precursors to it, or they just, or if you have, clients who have, I forget what it's called, the Telogen.
Telogen effluvium. Yeah.
And then maybe even for, and I don't know this, I'm kind of throwing a lot of possibilities at you, but also for let's say you have like a GLP-1 and they're experiencing like rapid weight loss or post-cosmetic surgery. So you kind of know that it's more of like a temporary, not to say temporary, but it's, what solutions would you suggest that they be offering? Or do you think that they, even for them, they should be referring them to a dermatologist for those type of examples?
Yeah, I would definitely say, so it's good to be able to familiarize with this yourself with this. And, oftentimes the client sits in the chair and they're sitting there for like several hours if they're undergoing like hair extensions. And so you really get to hear everything that's been going on in their life for the last 6 months. And so they will tell you if there's been some traumatic event that has occurred, or if they've had, if they're started on GLP-1s, you can probably visibly see it that as well. And so you can kind of start becoming your own diagnostician as yourself and see like, okay, this person's clearly has gone through something, has had this massive shedding from all over their hair, not just localized to one aspect. And so this is probably telogen effluvium, or we can call it TE for the purposes of here. And with TE, it's usually temporary, but it can be incredibly just frightening to a woman, because they're just like, oh my God, you really feel like you're just massively shedding and you don't know when it's going to end, because it often goes on for several weeks. And the thought is, just to kind of reiterate like what we talked about last time, is that basically the person has undergone some sort of like intense psychosocial event, either through words or body or just like mentally. And then 3 to 6 months later, they start developing this shedding. And that will usually last for about several months, and then it will eventually stop. But during that several month period is when everyone's like kind of freaking out as to what's happening. But if you can diagnose that yourself, then it's helpful to tell like the client, like this should pass, and that these are the things that you can make sure, as far as like if they do endorse taking GLP-1s, making sure that they're definitely taking like a multivitamin, but also just knowing that like the massive amounts of weight loss in a short period of time is what's definitely contributing. So one option is to decrease like how fast they're losing weight. I mean, that's like more than just your hair, that's for your overall health. But then there's other like vitamins that you can also tell them to check on as well. So women in particular really want to harp on your iron levels, like your ferritin levels, especially if you're a woman who's menstruating. Again, you're losing blood every month. That's not something that a man goes through. And that's something that definitely contributes to hair loss. So making sure that they've had that checked. Your vitamin D levels. I'm astonished by how many people in the US are vitamin D deficient, especially here in Los Angeles, where you think like, oh my gosh, the sun, you can see behind me, it's abundant all the time.
Yeah.
But all the time do I see women, especially darker skinned individuals as well, being vitamin D deficient. So it's really important to check that. I also asked to have your zinc levels checked. So zinc is an essential enzyme that is really beneficial for hair growth. It's not something that some folks would readily check, but it is something that, as an astute clinician, you can check for. Those are like the easy things to do. And so while you're having this conversation, you can tell your client, like, have you checked on these things? Tell your primary care to check on this. Even if they can't get into a dermatologist, the primary care can at least get these labs going in preparation for the person to go see a hair specialist.
Okay, so those three, the zinc, vitamin D, and ferritin. I have a question in terms of how dynamic those levels are based off of different factors. So like ferritin levels, should you is there a time around your menstruation cycle that you should be testing that's optimal to get it? Is it a dynamic level that changes during menstruation?
Good question. No, usually it's like an accumulation of just how things are in the grand scheme of things. So it shouldn't matter when you check it. And the one thing that I always do endorse for as well is your ferritin level may come back as normal based on the lab, and your doctor will be like, well, it's fine, you're normal. But for those who are experiencing hair loss, you actually want it above the upper limit of normal. So let's say the normal is 45, like you want it above 75.
Okay, so it's a numeric, so like on a 0 to 100 scale, is that what it's off of?
Yeah, because often that's where I kind of see people fall through, is that they'll just say, well, my ferritin was normal. Like, I don't see what the problem is. But if it was normal, but it was like on the even like the higher end of normal, you can still take ferritin supplementation, and that's just ferrous sulfate. That's 325 milligrams over the counter. You can get it on Amazon. And that will help your like your iron stores increase.
Okay, and then for vitamin D, like, is it also like more likely, like you need to be testing that in the winter where you're more like less likely to be getting it, or just get it when you can, like just test whenever?
Anytime. Yeah.
Okay.
So I personally have been like deficient, like I'm talking like had to take high dose vitamin D 3 times in my lifetime. And I've lived in mostly sunny
That's-
climates. So I think it's important to check often too. I mean, so you don't want to check like every 6 months because there's no reason that you should be vitamin deficient. But I would
Yeah.
say that every 2 years or so, make sure that you are checking. Most
These are
insurance
labs
companies
that you
require
should
that.
be like baking in. What is your thoughts on like self-testing for these, like the Everlywell or like
Mhm.
the blood splatter, like what are your thoughts on that kind of at
Yeah.
home testing for these?
If I feel like those, I never have anything against the companies that try to do this. My only concern sometimes, one is like your insurance should pay for most of these tests. So you're having to now pay, I think with the Everly, well, like you're having to pay extra for it
Mhm.
because they're testing a whole panel of things. Also, you don't know what their lab uh, like normalcy is. And so I think most of the labs that you get through your physician are through the two major lab companies in the US, which is LabCorp and Quest. And so they have like a very validated range of normalcy. And I would just say like it's just easier to do it through your doctor, your primary care doctor, and your insurance will cover it.
Okay. So these are, and it's good to know. I feel like a big takeaway is like have conversations with your primary care. And if they're not willing to have these conversations, maybe it's time to find
Absolutely. Yeah.
primary.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of frustrating, like because I hear it a lot. Like I hear it from the both clinician side and then I hear it from patients as well. And there are a lot of folks are just like tired of the world of medicine because they're just like constantly feel like they're being like medication is shoved down their throat. And they're
Mhm.
like they're looking for like something alternative. And I can understand then why just like they're like, oh God, like one more thing to check and like one more thing to do. But you would be amazed by like, I mean, these are just supplements that you can just get over the counter. The reason I say it's important to check is because you don't know how much of that supplement you need. So you may need a higher dose. And you also certainly don't want to overdose on it as well.
Yeah. No, and it's a good point because you want to have a baseline. Like you want to know
Yeah.
what you're going in with. You don't want to be like, I mean, we all are probably over supplemented, not
Mhm.
over supplemented, but I have some days where I'm like, you know what, this is my like second shake, my gummy,
Yeah.
so it's like it's a lot going on.
Question for the vitamin D. Someone mentioned it's a huge problem here in Phoenix, Arizona. Is it a geographic issue with vitamin D or is it just depends?
Were you able to hear that? So there's someone asking about it's a huge problem in Arizona, and I can imagine that maybe it's because you almost are like hiding from the sun. Although you have a lot, it's so strong and you're inside a lot. But is this a geographic thing? Like I know you mentioned like skin, like the more melanin you have, it's harder to absorb, but is it just in general as Americans we're having a problem, or are there geographic areas that might be more prone to it?
That's such a good point because you are that's something that I thought about myself. I'm like, how is it that like in Los Angeles I see more of this than I've had any time and I've lived all over the country. And I do believe it's because on top of that, as a dermatologist, we're also like just like talking all day long about sunscreen this, sunscreen that. And so people are just like terrified of going outside without sunscreen, which I'm not saying don't do that, okay?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that because of that, because we've become so militant about this, more so in the last 2 decades than we've ever been before, that we definitely are seeing decreasing vitamin D levels. So I do think it's because of just we're overly protective of our skin. And but in response, then we're also having decreased vitamin D levels.
And are there times of day where it's like safer exposure to sun? Like, is there times like in the evening light or morning light where it might be more optimal to get like with less direct? Is it like a UV direction thing, or is it
Exactly. Yes. So they always talk about like the UV, the amount of UV radiation is most concentrated, like let's say in the summertime between the hours of like 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay.
And so if you're trying to decrease the amount of UV to minimize your outdoor exposure during that time, or at least be covered up. But if all you need is usually about 10 minutes a day with unprotected skin. So
Okay.
a lot of my patients are like, okay, great. So I'm just going to go out there and like tan for like 2 hours because I'm trying to get my vitamin D. I'm like, well, you know, you don't really need that much. Like just 10 minutes is all you need. But I realize that we have very much of an all or nothing mentality. And so it's like either we go nuts with the sunscreen or we like do no sunscreen. So if you can just do 10 minutes with no sunscreen and then put your sunscreen on, you're good.
Yeah. I've been trying to do mine like morning coffee if the sun, I mean, we live on the East Coast, so we're lucky if the sun comes out,
Yeah.
drink morning coffee, no sunblock, and then go get ready for the day.
Yeah.
Now we'll kind of bring this back because we are a hair extension company. And, you know, for me, it is important to be honest about like there are limits to which, and I think Jen, your stylist you're really lucky that you had a stylist that took in partnership with you and found a solution that allowed you to like, knowing when to enhance, when to step back. Can you help us have, you know, I would love to hear, Jen, your personal experience of like what your stylist did that was so helpful in getting to find the right solutions. And then Dr. Miriam, just helping our professionals and just ways that they can be responsible stewards of hair extensions, make for women who do actually have, you know, there might be better solutions, or also being mindful of like what products might be safe as well with like a Rogaine or with their medication. So Jen, I'll have you start.
You know, I got lucky because the stylist that first started working with me on my journey, she had my same exact hair and was almost my same age. So she was talking to me based on her personal experience, and she knew everything that I was going through. So it was a very easy and organic conversation because she was right there with me. And that's one of the things that I've tried to bring in to support all of the stylists in my network right now is my experience, the age. Let's open up the conversations. And then once you do, you know, now I will have stylists say, would you mind talking to one of my clients? I have this person coming in this day or this person coming in this day. And a lot of the stylists want to hear the conversation so that they can know how to, you know, regurgitate that going forward. And that's been something that's been very helpful. And I would just say, just having honest, true, open conversations.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Dr. Miriam, what would you say in terms of just helping a stylist make sure that they're setting boundaries or having the like harder conversations to make sure that they're not exacerbating hair loss, or just helping provide a little bit of help
Yeah.
versus
Yeah. So, I mean, what kind of touched on earlier as well is that you are really their biggest advocate at this point. And if you start seeing that the hair is weakening under the extensions or there just seems to be an abnormal amount of shedding, I mean, it goes without saying that you should definitely urge your client to either take a break and look into what's causing all of this. Or perhaps then go into it with them as to like what the chemicals they are that they're exposing themselves to. One thing I can also do later on is like send a list of chemicals to avoid. There's a lot of like these big names that we put out there. Most higher end hair brands actively avoid these things because they know that there'd be like a lawsuit waiting to happen if they don't. And so, but I will say it's really important to review those things with the client. And I can also just send over a list of the most common types of irritants and allergens that we see that can actually be exacerbating the hair loss as well. But it comes down to just you being like, if you truly care about this person, which I would hope you do, that you would say something sooner than later.
Yeah. I think it's like being able to have the conversation and knowing that it's managing expectations. We talk about this a lot of like, okay, you're bringing in this picture of somebody with sometimes almost 2 pounds of hair on their head, and you don't have the weight to support that. So let's find a solution that is more based off of you know, and it's always saying it's enhancing what you have so that it's a good foundation. It's filling in the light gaps and the weight, but it's still giving your hair a fighting chance to have healthy follicles and grow and repair any of the damage. So I think, but that's a hard, I mean, it's a hard conversation. It's very similar to what you're saying with like within the dermatology practices that are doing the testosterone. It's like you really have to have the full conversation over the potential good
Yeah.
and bad that can happen.
Yes, absolutely. Such an interesting comment I saw here from Tamika.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not many stylists will be transparent with their clients because of the fear of losing income. And I can totally see that. And yeah, it's really, really sad. And so, I mean, I would hope that maybe there's someone in that person's life that would say something. Like I'll tell you my own personal experience. Like I used to do lash extensions for, oh my God, like 13 years, like longer than ever anyone. And it got to the point where the woman who did my extension, she's like, listen, because I love you, I refuse to do this anymore. Like I cannot continue to watch. And I had zero, like I had like chemo lashes, like there was nothing left.
Yeah.
And so it was like a year and a half of nothing on my eyes, which was really painful, as you can imagine, for it to come back. But now you see, like, if she had not said anything, I would have just kept going and I would have kept giving this woman money to keep doing this. And there would have been like the 3 strands that she would put the extensions on. The same goes with the extensions as well.
I agree. And I think it's like in the short term, yes, you might be losing income. But in the long term, I do think that when you have an honest, transparent conversation with someone who really needed that help and you help them navigate hair loss and enhance their hair versus always doing an extension, you build in I mean, I know Jen, in your market, you're very influential, and there was a whole group of women that you were able to kind of bring in who might have been sitting on the sidelines who are like, great. They kind of watch you and they're like, well, her hair seems to be better. And I want you opening up the door for them having conversations as well. Because there's a lot of women who would like the right solution but they need to be in the trusted hand.
Yeah.
So but I do hear the loss of income. Jen, do you find that like in your region, like as clients their client base is changing a little bit, and it's not necessarily like a loss of income, it's just a change?
I think it's what I'm seeing is almost an increase of income because these people like me who had gone away from the traditional hair extensions and stopped doing them altogether. Once I wasn't offered an alternative for just more enhancing my natural hair and natural length, I've heard the opposite where it's like, wow, this is really increasing my service because now I'm able to outreach a whole client base that I didn't have before. So you may lose in some areas, but by introducing this, you're gaining it back in other clients.
Yeah. I think it's a great call. Are there any other questions? Because I can't say enough. I really value, Jen, you being so honest and transparent about your conversation, just to show how emotional this is for, you're very much our clientele is like, this is a part of like their livelihood to feel good about themselves as well. And so like, there's so much empowerment that we can offer as a stylist to our clients. And a lot of us just don't know how to take that first step. So thank you for sharing like how helpful it's been. And, and then I saw Carissa, she's like, you threw it in right when I was about to wrap it up. I'm like, that's a whole other world. She was asking about male hair loss. But we'll touch on that in a second. But I do also, Miriam, I know you're 7 months pregnant, you're running a practice, but I really truly value every second that you've been able to help guide us, because I think this is such a important, and you bring such an intelligence to the conversation. So I want to respect your guys' time and so that hopefully you would want to do this again in the future. But I do just want to give Carissa a little time in terms of, for men, do you want to speak on that a little bit for stylists who might have male clients?
Yeah. So should I speak on it? Sorry. Was that, yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. Actually, most of my clients, I will say, are now becoming are men. Just because I mean, again, I live in Los Angeles. It's a very image focused locale. And more and more, I would say now in their 20s that are showing up. And now with the advent of oral minoxidil, much more men are willing to go on medications. Prior to this, it was the only thing that was kind of really the workhorse was the finasteride or Propecia, as some of
Okay.
you may know. And that can it's like an androgen blocker. And a man who's in his 20s and is told that potentially may experience erectile dysfunction if they take this, their whole world comes crashing down. And so they really, prior to this, they were just, unless they were desperate, they wouldn't take it. So now with oral minoxidil, it's a game changer. Many, many men come in and because they're just like, there's like no effect on their sexual prowess, shall we say. And now they have like they can at least preserve the hair that they have. I also see a lot of men who are like seeking hair transplants as well. Not such a great option, unfortunately, for females, but definitely men are much more inclined to do that and have like better outcomes with it as well.
And are they also embracing like the exosome treatments as well? And have you found that they're doing that? Or do you just think that like oral minoxidil is like such a like wonder drug that it's helping the 85% of the like what's your kind of take on how effective it is?
Yeah, the thing is like oral minoxidil is a wonder drug, but again, it depends on like the type of hair loss. And so like if someone has another type of contributing hair loss that's more of like an autoimmune disorder, the oral minoxidil won't work as well. And so like you may have folks who may listen to this and they're like, whatever, that didn't work for me. But that's because their type of hair loss is not a responder to that. But I would say the majority of what we're talking about is like the male pattern, female pattern hair loss, which are hormonally driven. Certainly, yes, you do need a component of some sort of like androgen blocking, but because a lot of folks are just anti that, this has been another tool that we can use that has really been helpful without having the major side effects. Yeah, I'm not sure if that entirely answers your question, but
So is that helpful for you? Okay. Well, I would say that I want to thank you guys again. We have a really amazing education program with Coveted Maine, and we really have taken even a lot of your feedback. We have a concealed class here today of just making sure we're able to weave this in through all of our education and our salon partners as well. So if you're not a part of Coveted Maine and you're a stylist looking for this level of conversation, like this really embodies our principles and our guidance, our guiding of how we run our brand. But for those who are in the California area and a lot of people will travel, Dr. Miriam, can you give us how they can find you? What's the best way to reach out and contact and any of your socials or any of that as well?
Yes, if you are in the Santa Monica area, so I'm at the Derm and Rejuvenation Institute, which is in Santa Monica, and I work with Dr. Tanya Cormelli, and I also am in Palm Desert as well, so in the Palm Springs area. So if you do a visit there, not in the summertime, but probably because of the 1,000 degrees, but I'm also out there. I will be taking a bit of a hiatus here in a few months, just going on maternity leave, but I will be back in action. After that. So I did want to ask a quick question actually myself, is again, for the sake of time, I don't want to get too far into it, but as you know, there's a lot of questions of like, how should the stylist respond or how should I would be interested from your perspective, what do you wish your physician had known? Or as a dermatologist, like, what do you feel like, how would you want us to change?
Jen, do you want to answer that?
Well, I wish that I could have actually gotten better answers from my dermatologist rather than kind of it brushed off to another realm. I wish that there was more support in the dermatology field. A lot of the med spas and stuff like that here are actually starting to incorporate some hair enhancement services within their practice. And I absolutely love to see that working hand in hand together. So, I mean, maybe just some more event driven or more conversations or more seminars that would bring together the world of hair and the world of dermatology.
Absolutely. Yes, I'm Thank you for that, because I'm involved in our national communities as well, and it's just good to know feedback directly from patients, because I really just, as you know, it's a two-way street. It's not just us saying things. I really rely on our patients and our clients like yourselves to tell us like how we can be better as well.
Yeah.
So that's very helpful to know.
What you said about the transparency behind like a rush, like the lucrative, there's like certain treatments that are lucrative, but not then like with the testosterone, that was a frustration for me and finding like through my process of like, I just wish that a dermatologist would have a little bit more of I would almost even be willing to pay more, knowing that I'm not going to be getting a service that is as lucrative, but it's much more consultative and much more able to navigate the realities of, yeah, my testosterone might be low, but I would rather do an oral monoxide, just and pay for that consultative part of it, because I feel like because a lot of those solutions may not be that lucrative, like when you go into in New York City, some of these practices, it's kind of like, oh, we're not really gonna get to that. And that part, I really appreciate your transparency in that and having a little bit more honesty about what some of the solutions are, even if they're not the most lucrative
Yeah.
for the doctor.
Yeah, and that's again, like it's really helpful if you just feel like your spidey sense goes off and you're like, oh man, I feel like I'm being sold a car at this point. Like there's certain practices you go into, and I see it sometimes, and it's just disheartening to see within my community where you just kind of feel like you're just constantly being schlepped something.
Yeah.
And it's your body, so it just feels icky because you're like, what is going on here? But I definitely advocate for people getting like second opinions, third opinions. It's like your hair, you're about to put something large, like it's, you're putting hormones in your body or you're taking pills, and if you just feel like something is off, definitely get a second and third opinion. And then if you consistently see that everyone's kind of saying the same thing, then you have a collective agreement.
I do have a question for you, and this is picking up on Katie's as well, because I am observing this as well too. I'm not going to hold you to this, but anecdotally, do you get a sense that you're seeing more thinning hair occurring earlier and earlier in patients?
Yeah, so that's a really good point. So, I had been noticing that. So a lot of my patients here in like Santa Monica, Brentwood area are young women in their 20s and who've been coming in with hair loss. And I'm always kind of astonished, like how much younger they're getting. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? I do wonder if some of it, and this is just my own thoughts here, is like the amount of hormonal, like contraceptives that that at a very young age, like people start using. And there's definitely something going on, and I feel like that still needs to be a bit sussed out, just because it doesn't seem normal. On top of that, we are actually also seeing increased number of like astonishing amount of cancer in the young adult population. Like breast cancer is becoming more and more prevalent now in women before the age of 40 than like ever before, and they're trying to figure out why, because they're not entirely sure what's going on. I'm sure every single person on this call has known somebody who's been affected by breast cancer, and they're starting to see it younger and younger. And I do believe that there is definitely a correlation between all these things. We just don't know exactly what.
And like I wonder with like the endocrine disruptors, hair color, the products. I mean, there's just such a confluence, microplastics. There's just so much that it's going into, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. As we get to shift into October, we'll be having conversations about that as well. So thank you. So I mean, that's a kind of a sad note to end on.
Yeah.
But it does, it's
good
just
awareness
of how I mean the role of a stylist. I mean, I could get very emotional thinking about it, but it's just it's a really foundational, super important role for a lot of women in their lives. And you guys do have so much influence and so much power, and you don't have to hold it alone. Like, I think the more that we can, reach out to experts, dermatologists and primary care physicians, even just to really own your power and be an influential role in your clients' lives is something that if that could be the gift that this conversation facilitates today, just imagine the ripple effects of what you can do for all your clientele. So Let's please continue having these discussions. And thank you everybody for joining today and being a part of the conversation. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
Also, we'll make sure that we will be emailing guys. We'll get that list of products because that would be really amazing just for, and I'm curious too as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I will send something over. This has been so fun. And I tell my patients now all the time, I'm like, the first person that's ever going to notice your hair like growth or loss is going to be your stylist. And so they will tell you. And every patient's like, oh, okay. So I guess I'll like, they really like, now they know from me telling them as well. So I love this collaboration and I'm really excited to continue moving this forward.
Well, thank you. And Jen, hopefully we'll have within your region, we'll have some events coming up that we can like start facilitating more of these conversations as well too. And thank you for being a part.
Yes, and I cannot wait to start bringing them into this region for sure.